All right, let's head now to Bloemfontein. And Arthur Fraser, former prison's boss, was given no choice but to approve former President Jacob Zuma's medical parole because correctional services did not have adequate facilities to treat him. This is one of the arguments being put forward by the former president's legal team. Last year in December, the High Court in Pretoria declared Zuma's medical parole unlawful. Well, Zuma's appeal is still being heard in the Supreme Court in Bloemfontein. Meanwhile, the Correctional Services Department maintains there was no misinterpretation of the Correctional Services Act. eNCA senior reporter Aviwe Mtila has been in court, and he's just popped out now to give us the very latest. Aviwe, thank you so much for jumping out of court. I mean, it looks like this is going to continue well into the evening. We've heard so much, but let's start at the beginning. What exactly is this appeal based on?
Well, Sally, you remember just in December, there was that High Court ruling, in fact, that said that that medical parole that was given to former President Jacob Zuma was irrational and illegal. But of course, we're hearing counsel now for Arthur Fraser, the then Correctional Services Commissioner, saying that, in fact, there was nothing illegal about it. It was based on merit. You understand that there has to be an application for medical parole, and they say that that application was done by Dr. Mafa. In fact, there was another second application also done by another doctor who both examined the former president and determined that he was terminally ill. But you do understand also the role that is supposed to be played by the Medical Parole Advisory Board in coming to those determinations. There was that advice also from that board that says that the president was fit enough to serve the remainder of the 13-month sentence. But of course, Arthur Fraser overlooked that and took then these two medical doctors' reports saying that they had, in fact, examined the president. It's one of those bone of contentions that Advocate Mtila said that, in fact, Arthur Fraser came to a sober conclusion, and the Medical Parole Advisory Board is a mere recommendation. It's not the stamping authority and not the stamping foot. But another issue that was raised here by Advocate Dalimpofu, representing former President Jacob Zuma, is that just days into his sentence, he fell ill. He went to the doctor. The head of prison came to the conclusion that former President Jacob Zuma needed 24-hour service, basically. He needed to be looked after on a 24-hour basis, and that's something that the Correctional Services facility couldn't do. Let's take a listen to Advocate Dalimpofu and what he had to say a bit earlier on here.
She says, Mr. Zuma was subsequently transferred to the Pretoria Heart Hospital on the 5th August 2021. It should be noted that according to SAMS, that's the military people, the condition of Mr. Zuma required that he be under care of a medic on a 24-hour basis, a situation that was not possible at the facility, as the correctional center can only accommodate inmates overnight. Therefore, the medic could not be allowed to spend 24 hours with Mr. Zuma, as the medic could not be accommodated in the correctional facility. Again,
just remind me, Mr. Mpofu, just remind me, yes. How is this now related to the relief?
No,
I think I've just lost you somewhere.
No, I understand, Justice. It's related in the following manner. He and no one else will know if indeed there might be some facility in Kokstad or whatever that could have accommodated this situation. But he says there is none in South Africa. We just do not have that, and we have to believe him.
It's an interesting situation that we're developing. So what we're hearing is that the Medical Parole Advisory Board advised that the former president could actually still stay in prison and be medically looked after. But as Dalimpofu has mentioned there was the Defence Force, the medical team, who said, no, they actually don't have enough. And you alluded to it just now, that point that, well, advisory board means just that, just to advise but not make the actual decision. But there was a bit of a response to that. Tell me about the role of the board and how it was discussed today.
So there's that response even currently happening now from the Helen Suzman Foundation. But earlier on, we heard it from Advocate Jamie here, Senior Counsel representing the Democratic Alliance, in stamping the authority of the Medical Parole Advisory Board. They say that even while it was set up for those very reasons, to ensure that the Correctional Services National Commissioner doesn't do as he pleases. In fact, mentioning Shabir Sheikh, who was released on medical parole back in 2009, after serving 2 years of his 15-year sentence, saying that it's something that while the Medical Parole Advisory Board was set up to avoid such instances. In fact, they say that they do have the power and the authority, in fact, to stem who goes on a medical parole and who doesn't. And the commissioner is supposed to toe the line when it comes then to what the Medical Parole Advisory Board says. In fact, let's take a listen to Advocate Jamie, just representing the Democratic Alliance on this very issue.
There was some debate earlier from a learned friend for Mr. Zuma as to the fact that all that the board is supposed to do is provide a recommendation in terms of the Act. You will look at 79.3a and you will see there's no indication in express terms of the board making a recommendation. The emphasis is on the board, or the minister must establish a medical advisory board to provide an independent medical report to whoever's got the power to grant medical parole, in addition to the medical report referred to in subsection 2C. So that, in our submission, on a purpose of effective interpretation of the provision, makes it clear that the legislature elevated the purpose and importance of that report over and above the report in 2C, which in any event is only required if it's a sub-Roman 2 scenario, not a sub-Roman 1. That demonstrates, with respect, that you can have a medical parole application without 2C being complied with. And if that's the case, you can hardly elevate 2C to the same level of importance and centrality to the medical parole scheme as this independent board's report.
Another issue that's been quite fascinating is the fact that the medical report is redacted, that key elements have been blanked out, and not even the judges sitting in the Supreme Court of Appeal have been able to read the full report to understand exactly the nature of the terminal illness that the former president is suffering from. And this is a big issue, isn't it? Because they have to make a decision ultimately on whether the law has been properly applied, but also, I would imagine, to a certain extent, on whether Arthur Fraser made the right call. Or am I misunderstanding?
It is a big issue, Sally, a big issue that the justices themselves have been asking time and again, even to Advocate Mtila, who represents Arthur Fraser, saying that how can we be certain that, in fact, former president is terminally ill without seeing the full report and what really is happening. But that was stamped out by Advocate Mtila, saying that, in fact, the former president is terminally ill. 2 doctors suggested, giving Rose reports saying that they have examined him, he's terminally ill, he's got comorbidities. But, of course, Advocate Dalimpofu as well saying that he has that right to privacy. And they just gave assurance that Arthur Fraser is one of those decisions that he made knowingly. Arthur Fraser had the whole full preview of what was happening. He does know what exactly is happening with the former president's health. So he made that decision consciously, knowing that what exactly is happening. But of course, these justices are still none the wiser to exactly what the president has. But they've just been told that he's terminally ill with comorbidities.
Very interesting indeed. I'm going to let you get back into the Supreme Court of Appeal, because as you were explaining to me, it's likely to continue well into the evening because we still have to hear replying arguments as well. So thank you so much for giving us that update. That's our senior reporter coming to us.